In a terrific op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal, Senator Roger Wicker writes, Joe Biden should come out and say it. America will help defend Taiwan. And he joins us now to talk about this. Senator Wicker, good to see you, sir. And this was a heck of a great piece. A lot of meat on the bones. And I want to ask you at the top, the Davidson window. Tell us about the Davidson window, please.
This was sort of a surprise bit of testimony last spring from Admiral Davidson, who was leaving as Indo-PACOM, as the leading admiral there in Indo-PACOM for the United States. And he said, basically, the people who are convinced this is going to be a long-term threat from China, as far as invading Taiwan, they need to look at it differently. There's about a 6-year window in which it would be optimal for communist China, mainland China, to make a move against Taiwan. And so I think a lot of people have looked at his analysis and have come to agree with him. Listen, Larry, I don't want a war with China over Taiwan. I don't want a war with Russia over Ukraine. But I think the best way to avoid conflict is a show of strength and a show of resolve. And I just got back from the Halifax Security International Conference in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And I'll tell you, the two things that they're worried about there principally are Chinese invasion of Taiwan and the Russians amassing these troops on the border of Ukraine. We need to send strong signals that we're not going to stand for this, and there'll be serious consequences in both situations.
Do you think, I mean, we've always had this policy, as you point out, strategic ambiguity, but it just, as I read this and my own wanderings and discussions on this subject, Robert O'Brien's a regular on the show and so forth, it seems, Senator Wicker, there's a little too much strategic ambiguity and not quite enough of what you just said. If we are strong and, you know, on point, that'd probably do more to help stop Taiwan invasion than anything.
Well, and thank you for complimenting the op-ed I had in the Wall Street Journal. Yes, I think it's time to admit that strategic ambiguity no longer serves the American interest and no longer serves the interest of world peace. And actually, I was surprised, delighted when President Biden on 2 occasions last month in a CNN town hall interview on 2 occasions said we would defend Taiwan. That is our national policy. And I don't know, maybe that indicates, as some people believe, an instinct on the part of the Biden administration that we ought to come closer to saying Taiwan is a vital interest for the United States. There are a lot of other people who think he was just confused, and the very next day his staff and his foreign policy advisors made him walk that statement back and said, no, we're still trying to be ambiguous here. I think the time for ambiguity is over. Certainly, it's time for more of a Navy buildup in the Pacific, and the president's defense budget does not indicate that he understands that part of it.
So that's a key point. Is that going to figure, Senator Wicker, into the National Defense Authorization Act discussions?
Well, fortunately, on a bipartisan basis, the bill that has come out of the Senate raises the defense budget by $25 billion over the President Biden plan. So, and a lot of that is Indo-Pacific, where we need it. The fact is, the Chinese Navy is larger than ours. The statutory number of ships that we have called on, signed into law by President Trump, is 355 ships. We're well below 300 now, but China has reached 355 ships, and many of the analysis, many of the analyses we've seen in writing from independent experts is that, frankly, they have us outmanned in terms of capability of winning an actual conflict there. We need to avoid a conflict, but the best way to do it is to say, Taiwan is a strategic ally of the United States. Our economy would suffer immensely if Taiwan were conquered by China, and also our other allies in the Pacific would be well disadvantaged if China took over Taiwan.
Certainly. I mean, the semiconductor thing is huge. Senator, can I just get your last 30 seconds or so? This Chinese tennis star flap, Peng Shuai, do you think, first of all, that she's okay? I mean, we've had a lot of ambiguity, talk about strategic ambiguity, about whether she's around or not and healthy. And secondly, does this kind of, you know, she was sexually assaulted, that is her allegation, against the top Chinese minister. And then the second part is, should we boycott the Chinese Winter Olympics altogether, or a diplomatic boycott? What you thinking?
Well, you've given me less than 30 seconds to answer quite a question there. I think we ought to have a very serious debate in the coming weeks about boycotting the Chinese Olympics. But look at what China does when someone alleges sexual assault and what the United States does. It's completely different. And I have grave doubts about the authenticity of the information and the videos that we've been able to see. And we need more answers.
Well, I think you did a great job, sir, on 30 seconds. Pretty good. It's a complicated issue, but
Larry, it's good to talk to you.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, sir. Thanks for coming on again.